At the end of Matthew chapter 9, Jesus said to his disciples something that would be applicable to anybody in the workplace, frankly, anybody, period, who takes following Christ seriously. He said that he looked on the multitude with compassion and saw them as sheep without shepherds. He said to his disciples, the harvest was plentiful, the laborers were few, and that they should pray that God would raise up laborers for the harvest. If you pray that, it won't be long before you'll find yourself having a heartbreak for people who need to know Jesus. And I think we can apply this further by just simply praying for the people around us. When I became a new Christian, the pastor of my church said, Jerry, if God answered every prayer you prayed this last week, would there be anybody new in the kingdom? I think we can just begin by praying for people and then telling them we're praying for them. I can remember years ago, I used to do working lunches every day. And I would always go to the same restaurant. You can get tired of the food, but you're not there just for the food. You're there to make a difference for Christ. The man who owned the restaurant's name was Brad, and I put him on my prayer list as soon as I met him. I would have small talk with him every day, talk about the menu, tell him I liked the mahi-mahi sandwich, or maybe ask him how his business was going. But after 3 weeks, I said to him, you know, Brad, I pray for you every day. I've never said that to a person and had them say back to me, well, would you stop it? Most people are moved by the fact somebody's praying for them. The next 3 weeks, it was small talk, and then 3 weeks again, I said to him, you know, Brad, I pray for you every day. The second time I said it to him, he said, you know, you said that to me a few weeks back and I didn't really believe you, but if you're saying it again, you must really be praying for me. I said, oh yeah, Brad, I do every day. He said, Jerry, would you pray for my boys too? I wrote down the names of his boys, and that night when I was home, I told my family, Brad asked me to pray for his boys. My daughter Alicia said, Dad, I know his one son, he goes to my school. I wish you could have been there 5 months later when she came back from the church youth group and said, Dad, one of the guys brought Brad's son to youth group tonight and he gave his heart to Jesus. My kids know God answers these prayers. Well, on it went for months. Every 3 weeks, I would just tell Brad I was praying for him. After about 9 months, he came up to me and he said, Jerry, can I talk to you after your lunch today? I said, sure, Brad. We went down the street to a coffee shop and he just started pouring his heart out to me. Why? We had had no more serious talk or spiritual talk than me just telling him I was praying for him. But when his life started to unravel, he was looking for somebody who was concerned for him. And he poured out his story over about 3 hours with lots of tears. And finally I said, you know, Brad, I think you need Jesus. And I shared the gospel with him. And he said, you know, Jerry, I think I need Jesus too, but I don't want to give him my life like it is right now. I think I want to fix it first. I said, well, Brad, you could try it like that. It's not the way it's usually done. And if it doesn't work for you, let me know. And I went back to praying for him. Every 3 weeks, I would tell him, Brad, I'm praying for you. About 5 months later, he called me up and he said, you know, Jerry, my way's not working. I need Jesus. And he came to my office and I had the joy of leading him to Christ. And then we started following him up. The exciting thing for me is that you could just begin with prayer, pray for people, and then watch what percolates in the conversation. By the way, about 6 years ago, Brad dropped dead of a heart attack. And if you're a believer in Jesus, I'll introduce you to him one day because these conversations matter. So what would I say to you after a little talk like this? Number one, pray for people around you who don't know Jesus. Number two, on occasion, tell them you're praying for them. Be persistent about it and intentional. And lastly, be ready when the gospel can percolate into the conversation naturally and you could lead your friend to Christ in the marketplace.